we can relate on this, man. Watching the New York Knicks, it's a lot of hockey assists and a lot of regular assists Carmelo Anthony should have had. It just wasn't players hitting the shot.
I just don't think he has it anymore.
Melo's the role he didn't want in Oklahoma.
Carmelo Anthony throws it straight away.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Control the Narrative. 54 episodes of Control the Narrative. We're a podcast that controls the narrative that the media creates. If you're new around here, subscribe and catch our weekly podcast talking about Carmelo Anthony, the Blazers, all that shit. And if you're a local around here, a subscriber, a follower, all that shit, we appreciate your attention as always. Over the past 7 days, there hasn't really been a ton going on in the Portland Trailblazer world because they had 2 games postponed against the Grizzlies. Grizzlies had some contact tracing going on with COVID and all that shit. But they had 2 games in the last 2 days, and they are headed to Houston on Thursday or maybe tomorrow. We're recording this on Tuesday, but I'm actually going to be in Houston watching the Blazers Rockets. You know, I had to see Melo once this year, and they are not allowing fans in the majority of the arenas. The Rockets are the one team, so one of the few teams. So I'm headed down there. So I'm excited about that. And stay tuned to us on Twitter, Instagram, all that shit. As I'm sure I'll be posting a ton. But anyway, with all that being said, I got not a repeat visitor, but you may recognize him if you've watched Control the Narrative on YouTube. My guy Fattz. Yo, Fattz, how's it going, bro?
What's up, man? Appreciate you for having me, Steve.
Of course, bro. Appreciate the time. And first of all, can you show that shirt off real quick for all those watching on YouTube and all that shit? Because that is literally one of the most fire Melo t-shirts I've ever seen.
We got the Syracuse, Melo, Oak Hill, Townsend, New York, Denver, which probably my favorite, either that or the Syracuse, USA, OKC. And unfortunately, we got Houston because they played my boy. But
that's fire.
The Melo button. Appreciate
you taking some time out. You know, Fattz was on one of the Control Game Night episodes, and you know, this has been long overdue, this episode. But anyway, for those who don't know you, yo, why don't you tell everybody how you started liking basketball, how you got into Melo, and just like your basketball fandom as a whole.
Yeah, man, my name's Fattz. I'm from Columbus, Ohio. I actually got into basketball. I had a lot of older cousins who played, just playing at the local park for real. Then my first player I ever fell in love with was Allen Iverson. I was a big Allen Iverson fan when he won the first title. I mean, when he won that game 1 versus the Lakers, you couldn't tell me he wasn't about to win a ring. But I started watching college basketball. I knew a little bit about high school, seeing Melo and LeBron, because, of course, I'm from Ohio, so you're going to hear about the LeBron talk. Seeing Melo and, was a fan of him and started watching him at Syracuse. Didn't have a college basketball team, so I just said, I'm going to follow this guy. Everywhere he go, I started liking Syracuse. He got drafted by the Nuggets. Before you know it, all my Iverson gear was gone. My mom was mad because she had to go buy a whole bunch of Carmelo Anthony gear. But that's where my love with Melo came from. And anybody who knows me, man, to tell you, I'm probably one of the biggest Melo fans. I'm gonna say that with a lot of pride too, because it's been my guy since I was in the 4th grade. So I've been following his whole career, man. And it's just a big basketball fan. And like I tell everybody, he one of the greatest to ever put the ball in a bucket. So you better check the facts and check the stats, man, because that's Carmelo.
Yeah, so important question. You said you're from Ohio. You heard about LeBron in high school and all that. Why did you pick Melo over LeBron?
I don't like no team in Ohio, if I'm being honest with you.
All right.
I've never been somebody who liked to like no team in Ohio. And always had a thing of being different, I guess you could say. So when everybody was riding that wave, I hopped on my own.
All right, fuck with it. Because I didn't know if it was like style of play or just whatever, but always curious because like for people who say they've been a Melo fan for so long, obviously him and LeBron got in the league at the same time, and just always curious to see why people pick Melo over LeBron. Like I picked Melo over LeBron because he was on the cover of a video game, NBA Live 05 and shit like that. And I think I've told this story before on here, but my uncle got me a LeBron jersey for Christmas one year, and I told him, I was like, oh, like, I don't like LeBron. I like this guy Melo on the cover. And he's like, all right, give it to your brother. So I gave it to my brother. My brother's 2 years younger than me. And he became a LeBron fan. I became a Melo fan, and just ever since that day, I feel like it's been it's been like the curse.
That's a crazy story, bro. Because I have a very when I say almost the exact story. So my grandma bought me she's a Cleveland Browns fan. She loved everything in Cleveland. So when LeBron got drafted, she got me a LeBron Cavs jersey, and I was like, nah, grandma, I'm a Carmelo Anthony fan. So I am a collector of jerseys. Like I have a lot of people if I go in there in my room. So I always kept it. But then my brother ended up being a LeBron fan. We the same age. So I just gave him the jersey, man. Never. Now LeBron's shoes are comfortable to hoop in, but about that, I probably don't own anything LeBron, to be honest with you.
Same situation, huh? That's wild. And then we've been on the losing end of fucking how many arguments over the years, right? Like, what the fuck can we say?
Turn on the highlights and watch them go one-on-one. That's my main answer right there. Watch how many times you can pull up Carmelo Anthony in the game winner on LeBron.
All right, that's a good one. I like that. All right, bro. Let's get into the Blazers a little bit. So, like I just quickly talked about at the beginning of this, hasn't been a crazy eventful week because they've had a few games postponed, but they did get 2 games in over the last few days. And really, the story over the last 2-3 weeks has been injuries for this team.
Yeah.
They started off the season, obviously everybody healthy, Nurk, besides Zach Collins, but Nurk, CJ, Dame, everybody's healthy. And in the last 2 weeks alone, or maybe 3 weeks, Nurk goes down, CJ goes down, Covington has a concussion, so obviously not long term. But Derrick Jones Jr. gets hurt. He has a hip or a quad contusion or some shit like that. So the reason I'm saying this is because we all came into the season talking about how deep this Blazers team is, and they have so many good players, 2-3 players at each position. With all these new injuries, do you think this team is deep enough to overcome those 4 guys going down?
I'm going to say yeah at the moment because it's early in the season. So, this was later in the season, around All-Star break, it'll really be a big problem. But, at some point in time this season, you're going to get all these guys back. It's just, like you said, can you stay afloat? Can everybody do their job? So, last night it kind of showed, with Melo and Dame missing shots, they're going to need other guys to step up. They're going to need Gary Trent Jr. to have bubble performance. They're going to need Enes Kanter to come off the bench and have some of them spectacular games. Yeah, we all know he can't play a lick of defense, but the man could get you 20-20 some night. So they're going to need games like that. And because with Melo and Dame, being the main 2 guys, defense are going to just swarm them to. Honestly, Dame, they're going to trap him a lot up top when he hit the half court. Melo, he's going to get his touches in the mid-range to catch and shoot threes. I'm excited to see them go to him a little more because they were deferring to a lot of other players. But the CJ is going to hurt, especially the CJ. The Nurkic injury is going to hurt because, they're good. They're great in the pick and roll with him.
Right.
He's a great offensive talented big man. So they're just going to need other players to step up. It's time for guys like Nasir Little, Anthony Simons. Oh, don't even get me started on him. I think he's one of the worst backup point guards in the NBA, if I'm being honest with you. That's something else the Trailblazers could use as another playmaker that could help Dame get off ball, create shots for other players. So they're going to need other players to step up. But fortunate, it's early in the season, and they could try to stay afloat. Right now, I want to say they're 5th in the West last time I checked.
I think so.
So they could at least stay in the 5 to 8 range, to be honest with you, so they could at least get CJ or somebody back. That'd be good for them. Yeah,
great point. I think pretty much the same thing. It's not something that they can overcome long term, but it's just about staying afloat. It's about beating the teams that you're supposed to beat. And, they just lost to the Thunder last night. So Thunder obviously are not a great team, but it's just about playing well versus the bad teams and, having a shot versus the good teams. I don't think they're going to go up against the Clippers and beat the Clippers anytime soon, the Lakers or anything like that. But in the short term, I do think that they are deep enough, but it really starts and ends on the defensive end because as much as Dame puts in, some nights he doesn't have it. Last night, he didn't have it. Melo did all right. I think Melo was 9 for 21, but 22 points. So those guys, they can carry the team offensively and get guys open looks. And even Simon's I am not a fan of that dude, but he fucking killed it last night.
Yeah.
No, I think it was like it was definitely a season high. It might have been like close to a career high or some shit. So yeah, it's about other guys occasionally stepping up on offense, but at the end of the day, if they can just play good defense and like they have the bodies, I don't understand. It's not like they have all these slow people. Like they have the bodies. If they could just hold teams to like 110, 105, like is somewhere around that range and not have to put up 125 points to win every game, then it takes so much pressure off Melo. I mean, Dame first, obviously. Dame, Melo, and then like you don't need a guy like Simons to have a season high every single game just to be in the game versus the Thunder. You don't need a guy like Gary Trent Jr. to shoot 70% from three or whatever the fuck he was shooting in the bubble to compete with teams. So to me, it's just about Dame and Melo are going to get you points. You know, other guys are going to have their nights, but if you can just play defense, like they have the guys, which is just so frustrating to me.
I think that's the Trailblazers' Achilles heel. Like it's like they just don't want to play defense. Like you said, sometimes they don't even show the effort to play defense. Like because they have the mentality of, oh, we could score and get it back. Like, nah, man, we got to get a stop on this end, and like the stop don't end until you get the defensive rebound. Like so that's something Portland really struggles at. Like it's playing defense, and it's just like how, man. Like all you guys are NBA players. Like just communicate. And all that, like, just play defense, man.
And yo, the outscoring other teams, like fuck it, they score, but we're gonna score like more than them. That works if you have CJ, Nurk, like everybody. That's what they were doing in the bubble. They weren't playing any defense in the bubble. They were just putting up 125 a game. So you didn't have to. But now, especially with just Dame and Melo, really the two playmakers, and like Simons, if he's hot, can be one, but most of the time he just gets the ball and shoots. Gary Trent, I love Gary Trent. I think he can create shots and shit like that. But Dame and Melo are going to be the two guys you're relying on. So they're going to do their thing. If the other players could be like, yo, we just got to focus on defense and like hit a few shots here and there. Like you said, I think they could stay afloat. And I wouldn't be surprised if they go from like 5 to 7 or 6 or some shit. But CJ should be back in a few weeks max. Nurk is obviously out, another month or something. But just stay fucking afloat until those guys get back and then see what happens.
Yeah, just stay afloat. They can't do what they did last year and just fall to like the 11th seed. Like, hey, man, we're going to need y'all to just stay afloat. Be a competitive team till you get CJ back, like you said. So just stay afloat.
Yep. What do you think of – so speaking about offense, Melo is pretty much now the second focal point of offense. The second focal point of offense. He's the focal point of the offense behind Dame. I think that's a better way to say it. Obviously, Dame is the leader. He's the captain, all that shit. What have you thought in these last two games specifically about Melo's play being the second guy offensively that they've been going to? Like last night, in that second quarter, he hit 6 in a row, and I'll get into what I think, but they really look to him when Dame's not on the court to be that facilitator, to be the guy who gets a bucket when you can't just run pick and rolls and all that shit. So, what do you think of how he's been playing in these last two games specifically?
I actually like how they've been getting him involved, getting him touches on the block, not just making him a catch and shoot guy. Like he brings more to the table to that. And you think once he gets going, like for example, once he hit 2 shots last night when he hit 6 straight, the fan in me started going crazy, but the defense started panicking because now they're sending double teams at Carmelo Anthony that's on his 18th year in the league. So that's scary because he's getting rid of the ball, making quick passes. They don't always lead to assists on his stats. They lead to hockey assists sometimes, but I think it's great. We're going to see more of it, of course. So I'm excited to see the road and excited how much playmaking and scoring he could bring because, like we said last night, when he got on that streak, it was like watching Carmelo Anthony again. Like, mama, there goes that man. So It's exciting watching him.
Yo, you said one thing I want to point out real quick. You're a basketball coach, right? So you know the game.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
So define what a hockey assist is to people and why, not that it's underrated or anything like that, but
it's very underrated.
All right. So define what a hockey assist is and then kind of correlate it to Melo's assists over the years in general and like how that correlates, if that makes sense.
What a hockey assist is basically when you pass it to somebody who's open, basically a smart way of rotating the ball. You could put it. Somebody who I think is great at it. Off topic is Lonzo Ball because he passes the ball ahead so quick. Now the defense can't set up. So you toss it up, and now think the ball moves quicker than anybody on the court. So once you toss that ball, the defense get to moving. So now you didn't throw it to this guy. So let's use Melo, for example. When he's down on the block posting up, they send a double team. Anthony Simons cut. So boom, he done dropped it off to Anthony Simons. Now the big man just stepped up because he see Anthony Simons. Anthony Simons has a free lane to the basket. Boom, he kicks it to Gary Trent in the corner for a three. That's a hockey assist. So like it's not always going to show up in your stat. And we can relate on this, man. Watching the New York Knicks, it's a lot of hockey assists and a lot of regular assists Carmelo Anthony should have had. It just wasn't players hitting the shot.
Yep.
So it's something he's always done over his career. People just are too caught up on, oh, well, he's averaging 3.1 assists or he averages 2.9 assists in his career. Like, are you actually watching the game or are you just checking stats? Because it's something called the eye test. And you've never seen like Carmelo Anthony not pass the eye test. I don't care what it is, whether he passes the ball. Because I don't think people understand how good he really passes the ball. It's just because he's a scorer. Like, Of course, he's not a Jason Kidd, a LeBron, a Magic Johnson passing the ball. But go watch some of them Denver highlights. Like, think how them big men was eating Nene. Think Amari Stoudemire when they did run the pick and roll in New York when he was there. So, like, Melo could really pass. People just don't give him his credit for it because he's known as a scorer.
Yeah. And just like the hockey assist thing, it's so I don't want to say frustrating, but
it's frustrating.
It's like pretty much you can't pass it to the guy directly, so you pass it to someone who passes it to him.
Somebody who should have the IQ to make the basketball,
right?
To get the open man the ball,
right? And obviously, if you pass it to someone who passes it to another person, that second person gets the assist, and the person who started the pass does not. So that's why when you look at a guy like LeBron, and like LeBron's a great passer, one of the best passers of all time. But when LeBron will drive, he has an open guy direct in his view or like across the court or whatever. When Melo passes it, a lot of the time, you have to pass it to someone else just because he gets it on that elbow. So there's not a direct line. So.
And that's the easier way. Like you said, that's a perfect way to put it. It's easier to pass the ball when you have when you're in the center of the floor and have everywhere else to work with. Like when you're coming off a pick and roll, heading downhill, you have either side to pass it to. You can even kick it back if you want to. If you're on the block and they send the double team, it's not too many ways you could pass the ball. You're going to have to skip it across court, get it to the guy close to you. Like, you got to be smart with the ball not to get a turnover. So,
yeah, it's dangerous. That cross court path is dangerous. I can't fucking speak.
Very dangerous.
But yeah, man, his play over the past 2 nights, I just seeing them give the ball to him in ISO, like literally 5 or 6 straight times, bro. I feel like I was back watching the Knicks. Like I was just sitting back and was like, I love and you know, he hasn't been shooting the ball great. Like that game of versus the Knicks.
He's shooting. It was frustrating watching Portland Trailblazer games and seeing Carmelo Anthony take 9 shots. Like the whole point I'm watching the Portland Trailblazers is to watch him score. So I need more than 9 shots.
Same. And yeah, like that Knicks game, he did not shoot the ball well, but yesterday 9 of 21. It's not great, but it's not terrible. So you know, and he'll get more comfortable. Like he hasn't been doing that since
that hasn't been his role in a couple of years now.
Right.
Like 3 years.
Right. Yeah. So, you know, giving him some time to get acclimated to that because you know, just one thing that in OKC and shout out my boy Chris Slavin, he talked about this. He was saying how, you know, they expected him to just become this lights out spot up shooter overnight when he's been playing one way his entire career. And obviously he's become a much better catch and shoot shooter. But also now it's like that's kind of all he's been doing, and he's been getting a couple ISOs a game. So now with, you know, him being really the second point offensively, you know, he almost has to get back into what he was doing.
Yeah, you gotta get back. It takes time. You got to get back to that rhythm. Like you said, over the past 2 years, he's really been a catch and shoot guy for Portland. And even going back to OKC, and like I heard Billy Donovan didn't even know how to put him into the offense, which is mind-blowing for him to be an offensive coach. And for this guy to be one of the greatest scorers ever. How don't you know how to put him in the offense?
Trash. All right, man, let's get into the defense a little bit. like we talked about, they have the bodies to defend. It's not like these guys are slow. Besides Cantor, like Gary Trent, great defender. Derrick Jones, athletic as hell. Robert Covington, known for his defense. Dame, like he can move his feet. Melo, underrated defender. Like he's not a great defender, but he doesn't suck. Yeah. So with all that being said, one thing I thought was really interesting was versus the Knicks. So the Knicks, obviously, I think they're one of the worst offensive teams in the league, one of the best defensive teams. So they played a zone for like the majority of the game versus the Knicks. And it seemed to work. Like, obviously, the Knicks don't have those shooters that pretty much every team in the NBA has. But what I want to know is, do you think they should explore the zone versus other teams, or do you think it was like a one and done thing where it was because the Knicks don't have shooters? It's not, you know, it doesn't last. It's only like a one game thing, or do you think they should try it out against other teams?
I think you'll see it more out of them, just to speak on the injuries they have, so they're not as deep right now. And just because the shorter season and playing back-to-back games, like as quick as they come, some guys may need rest. Like it's not like they have a super young team, or like the guys who contribute on their team is super young. So I can see them doing that for those reasons, and also because they had success with it. Like you said, I don't expect to see it every game. It might not even be every other game. But for example, teams like the Knicks, the Bulls, the Cavs, even though they just beat the Nets, we really know what's up with the Cavs. Teams like that, like you could be able to experiment things versus them and see how they could work, take them over from practice into the game, so get the flow with it. So I definitely expect Portland to run some more of that zone. But if they're going to run more of that zone, like me and you were speaking off of here, they got to communicate, they got to rebound and get stops, man. Like that zone, if they're going to run that, everybody has to communicate, because if one guy's not doing his job, that's a rebound, that's a putback, that's a backdoor for an alley-oop. So it's anything with the zone, but I definitely expect to see it more out of Portland.
Yeah, and bro, honestly, like even running it for the fact that it makes the other team think for a little bit, whether it's 5 minutes in the third quarter, whether it's 3 minutes in the second quarter, just here and there, I don't want to say it throws the other team off, but it makes the other team think it's not. Go ahead.
Nah, you're right with that, because think if they're having success with it, right, and the team calls a timeout because they don't know what to do versus the zone, or they haven't ran much zone because not too many teams in the NBA do, then they come out to timeout and Portland's back in the man-to-man, and the whole time this team that took a timeout drawing up plays or communication for the zone. So it can be something to throw a team off for sure. Yeah.
And I think it's like, fuck it. What the fuck do you have to lose? This Blazers team, like you can't guard anyone anyway. Throw in some wrinkles, and like I was saying it, but I think I was talking about in the bubble. I was talking about like double teaming, like the guy on the other team, making someone else beat you. If everything that they're doing is working and you can't stop anything, why the fuck not try something else? Whether it's the zone, whether it's trapping on a pick, whether it's I don't know, fucking cheating really heavily on one side of the court. Just do something. And I feel like Terry Stotts, he's never been known for his defensive schemes and all that. But
and like you said, if they just get creative, because they can't guard nobody. Like we've seen that if they're in a man-to-man, Portland's not going to guard you.
Right.
Like they're going to let you get the open layup, the open three, whatever you want. Like you can get something different every possession if they're in a man-to-man. But like you said, like they should definitely mix it up. Like even if you throw like a trap at the half court on when you playing somebody like Steph Curry bringing the ball up, like just do something to mix it up, Portland, because the defense is not there. It's a struggle for real.
Yeah. Great point. We'll see what the fuck they do. Their next game, getting into the next question, is Thursday night. So if you're watching this or listening to this on Wednesday, tomorrow night versus the Houston Rockets. We all know Melo played 10 games for the Houston Rockets. We all know they worked behind the scenes to blackball him. We all know they parted ways with him in November and didn't waive him. No, they traded him. Sorry, they traded him to the Bulls, and then the Bulls waived him until January. So with all that being said, and like all the gossip aside and all that, what can you say about Melo's time as a Rocket on the court? Again, only 10 games. wasn't his best 10 games of his career, but didn't suck shit like everyone said he did when he was washed. So what can you say about what you saw out of him on the Rockets 10 games?
At his time on the Rockets on the court, he had his couple, like you said, his splash games, especially that game versus Portland, which was, I mean, not Portland, Brooklyn. Yeah. Which was a couple games before they got rid of him, which literally made no sense. But honestly, man, if you want my honest opinion, like I thought it was going to be a failure from jump, whether he stayed there the whole season or not, because one, Mike D'Antoni. Mike D'Antoni doesn't run anything for an offense to a guy with a skill set like Carmelo Anthony. He's an actual guy who need touches. You slow the game down. Mike D'Antoni just want to run pick and roll, shoot threes, let's get up and down, his 7 seconds or less style. So I never thought it was going to work. Like, and you seen when he apologized for making a mid-range jumper, I didn't like that.
Remember that?
Yeah, I didn't like that because that's your game. That's what's got you now a top 13 scorer, but back then he was like 17 or something. Like, that's what's gotten you here, Melo. Like, don't apologize for playing your game. Like, that's you taking that shot is no different than James Harden dribble, step back three, because that's his game. So, like, you could tell from start he was uncomfortable. And then he said they never communicated with him coming off the bench. Like, I don't care what year he in, somebody that caliber, you should probably let them know they're coming off the bench. Just like Dwayne Wade, they let him know he was going to come off the bench. When it's somebody who's literally been that guy since day one, like a 15-year resume, like it's only side part, but it's only 4 players in NBA history to start their career off 15 years straight, averaging 20 plus. And Carmelo Anthony's one of them. I want people to know that. Carmelo Anthony is one of them out of all the players that ever played this game of basketball. So, like, he was never comfortable. Like, even with Chris Paul being there, you could tell Chris Paul was never comfortable because he never got to run the shot he did too. So, Chris Paul couldn't even do nothing to be like, hey, man, let's get him the ball down here, because that was never going to be D'Antoni's play style. So, I never liked the Rockets fit from jump, man, when he was going there. To be honest, I'd rather they had ran it back in OKC. And everybody who know me know I am not a Paul George fan, so that should tell you how I felt about him going to Houston. But that's my take on Houston, man. And for real, I wish no success for that franchise, for them using him as a space goat. I wish no success for James Harden. Mike D'Antoni doesn't need another job. I don't know how the GM got hired again in Philly. I wish no success for anybody who was on there and tried to use Carmelo as a space goat.
I love that. Yeah. Just failure to them. I'm going to be honest. I've talked about this before, but I was hyped when he went there, not because he was playing with Harden, not because he was playing for D'Antoni, but because he was playing with Chris Paul. I just thought I was always dying for him to play with CP, and I just thought it was a match made in heaven. I just thought I still do think Chris Paul is one of the best point guards I've ever watched. If not the best point guard I've ever watched.
For sure, Chris Paul up there.
Yeah. So I was just hyped about that, and like, you know, they were in the conference finals the year before. So I'm like, all right, you add Carmelo Anthony. I was like, all right, this OKC thing it's a 1-year thing. He's gonna go back to being that all-star every single year, like borderline if he didn't get the opportunities or whatever. Obviously, it didn't turn out like that, but I just think the craziest thing about all of it, and you mentioned it, is he literally dropped 28 points on 12 shots in Brooklyn, and then 3 or 4 games later,
he couldn't get it done all of a sudden.
He just wasn't wanted. He went from 28 on 12 shots to not wanted.
Like, it made no sense, man.
It's just crazy. Obviously, you know, he didn't kill it the other 9 games. It's not like he went out the other 9 games. It was averaging 25. We're not saying that. What we're saying is, you know, they blame their slow start, their 4-6 start, when CP and Harden both missed multiple games on a bench player. Not James Ennis, not Gary Clark, not Eric Gordon, who was shooting the ball fucking terribly.
Was he shooting like 31% at the time or something like that? It was terrible.
If that. And it's just like it's funny now looking back at it because he got back in the league and, you know, he's in a good situation sometimes when they give him the ball in Portland. But it's just absolutely wild to think about. 2 years ago, 2016, 17, 18. No, 3 years ago, he was labeled washed. And
mind blowing.
We talk about this shit all the time on Control and everything. But I just think his time as a Rocket, it won't really be remembered. Like, I bought this jersey, 7 Rockets. Like, you have a picture of him in a Rockets jersey on your shirt, and like obviously you didn't buy that shirt for that Rockets thing like I did, but it's just crazy because everything was pointing up after that OKC year. It was like, all right, this dude is in the right situation now. Chris Paul is going to make sure he's good. And it's just wild to think back about,
How
10 games. 10 games. Yeah, how it didn't work. And then also just, being given 10 games and then be like, yeah, it's not going to work.
Like,
your services are no longer needed. So
I agree with you, like, all the way on the Chris Paul part. That was something. I'm like, Melo and Chris Paul, they've been dying to play together.
Right.
But not in Houston. I knew, like, there was never, like, you wanted Carmelo Anthony and Chris Paul to run pick and pop all game. Like, that wasn't going to work. And, like, Melo's never been a pick and roll type guy. Yeah. So, like, I didn't see him playing that role. So, literally, the only way Chris Paul could give him the ball was a corner 3 or 3 on the wing. Because, as you've seen, when things got rough, Houston didn't know what to do in half court. Yeah. That's been proven since D'Antoni days when he was in Phoenix. When I've been watching him since I was in elementary, his half court struggles.
Yep.
So, I just never liked it, the Houston fit, man, to be honest with you. Like, I was being positive like you was. Like, man, they just made the conference finals. They added Carmelo Anthony. But then I got to thinking, like, yeah, Melo and D'Antoni didn't work in New York, like, at all. Like, and with D'Antoni having the higher say-so now, like, because Melo had the higher say-so in New York, he just got here. It's his franchise.
Right.
I felt that D'Antoni doing something grimy. Like, I thought the move to the bench was grimy.
It was.
So, like, once they did that, it was just all downhill from there, man, for real.
Yeah, and not shout out, but big fuck you to Jeff Bizdelic for blowing that shit apart. And, maybe it was for the better. Had he played that whole season as a spot-up player and he wasn't able to just like that, like on the fly like that, maybe he would have been done after that year. We really don't know. I genuinely believe that everything happens for a reason.
Because what I'm going to say, Melo can adjust to his role.
Right. And, not trying to get all, psychological and shit. But, he went to Portland, and for the most part, it's a mix of both spot up and ISO touches. So,
yeah,
he ended up being in the right spot. So, yeah, bro. All right. We reached the end of this podcast, Fattz. At the end of every podcast, we allow our guests to control a narrative. Doesn't have to be Melo related. Doesn't have to be basketball related. Doesn't have to be sports related. But I'm going to give you the floor and let you control a narrative.
Okay. So the control – I just messed that all up. I'm going to keep this sports related, man. Just know what you're talking about if you're going to talk it, man. Just know your facts. Really watch the game. Don't just be a highlight watcher. And just pay attention to the little details. Like, you don't always got to watch the guy who scored the ball. Watch the guy who set the off-ball screen. Like, people hate Draymond, but, like, I don't think people really know how good of a basketball player he is. Yeah, he might put up 6, 6, and 6, but I'll take that over a guy that's going to go give me 16, 0, and 0 because he don't bring nothing else to the table. So that's the narrative I would probably say control is not even just speaking basketball, man. If you're going to talk football, baseball, hockey, know your stuff, that's just everything, man.
And just saying, this is coming from a Melo fan. When you said, I'd rather have some guy put 6, 6, 6 than, 16 and 0. And the reason I'm saying that is because Melo does bring other aspects.
Man, like, just because he's not getting that, people think he doesn't. Like we spoke about earlier, the hockey assists. If they count hockey assists, Melo averaged at least 9 for his career. That's just being honest with you.
Yeah, for real. Good shit, man. All right, well, Fattz, appreciate you hopping on and talking some Melo with me. Why don't you tell everyone real quick about the podcast and just everything that you're doing with Always Talk Sports at Always TLK Sports.
Yep. So like I said, man, appreciate you for inviting me on again. Anytime I hop on. But yeah, Always Talking Sports. So it's Always Talk Sports on Twitter. That's the ad we have right there. He put up for me. Appreciate that. And on Instagram, it's Always Talking Sports. So it's a sports page that talks about everything. We talk about football, basketball, I graduated to be a sports analyst, so I actually am a sports reporter too. So I try to stay updated. You'll get report stories from me. We talk everything, and I try not to be biased from it. So you'll see a little bit of love for every team out there. And that's that. So always talk sports on Twitter, always talking sports on Instagram. You could spell the talking fully out, TALKING, sports on that, and the podcast. And we got a YouTube channel as well, which is always talking sports. So go ahead and check us out, man. Like I said, Steve, thanks for having me on, man. Anytime I'm going to get on here.
Appreciate that. And for everyone who's watching on YouTube, all those links will be in the description. So go check out Fattz, man.
Hold on, man. Before we get off here, what we talked about off here, I got to tell the people you want.
Oh, shit. That's right. Listen to the story real quick.
So we was talking about the Melo games we've been to, going to, because he had the Rocket jersey on the court. So 16-17 season, which was Melo's last season in New York before he went to OKC. I got a random call from, which is basically like my aunt. She got New York Knicks tickets, and I've seen Melo play a lot of times, like in Cleveland. I saw him play there. I saw him play in Detroit, but I've never seen him in the Garden. And I've always heard about the Garden. I even then went to the Knicks on 2K just to play in the Garden. But so this where I got between a rock and a hard place. I'm a high school basketball coach, so she bought the tickets randomly and told me and my brother if we just get to New York, she got the tickets for us and all that. And I had a game that day, man. And I ain't never did the kids bad or nothing like that. They know it's all love from Coach Fattz. It's all love. But that was the one time in my life, you know, the meme where it's like the Michael Jordan, like, fuck them kids. That's hey, bro, when I see, that's how I felt. But
yeah,
I couldn't miss the game. So unfortunately, I had to miss up on the opportunity to being in the Garden, but it's still something I want to make happen, whether I see Melo play there or somebody else play there. Hopefully the Knicks get somebody good. I'm not a Knicks fan at all. I'm just a Melo fan, but that'll still be something entertaining. I know they was wishing for Zion to sell out every night, but we see how that went. So, yeah, man, that was an unfortunate event for me, man. I didn't get to see him in the Garden. I had to settle to go watch him play in Indiana or something like that, but I still got to see Melo, so it's all good.
Yeah. Respect. And, who knows? Maybe for the last year of his career, if he ends up going back to the Knicks and all this COVID shit gets a little less worse, maybe you could finally catch him at the Garden one time.
If that happens, I'm at the season opener. I'm at the season opener.
You're not taking anything for granted.
It's funny because I was at the season opener when LeBron came back to Cleveland when they played the Knicks and he hit the
yeah.
Oh man, I was talking my shit. The whole Cleveland wanted to fight me, bro.
That Prigioni pass, right, to Melo, like behind it.
That turn around on the baseline. Yeah, I was barking my shit in there.
Unstoppable. Well, bro, again, appreciate you taking some time out. And everyone go check out his Always Talk Sports, Always Talking Sports. All the links in the description. On the come up, man. I see everything you're doing, so keep going, bro.
Appreciate it, man. Same to you. We just keep controlling that narrative you've been controlling for all these years, man.
Of course, bro. All of us. Appreciate the time, yo.
Appreciate you for having me on, my dog.